All right, welcome to Talkin' Investing. I'm Tom, and as always, this is not financial advice. Today, I want to talk about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners, and I want to talk about something very specific that's happening. I haven't really heard anybody else talk about this yet, so this is a weekly edition. We update this every weekend, so we're going to do all our charts that we always do. We've been shooting for 400 likes on each video, so if you guys could do a big favor and smash the like button, you guys have been doing a great job. It's helping out the videos a lot. It's helping out the channel a lot, so if you want to help support the channel, you can smash the like button. About half of you are still not yet subscribed to the channel, so you can also subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this content, and of course hit the notification bell if you want to get notified every time we make a video. Okay, let's talk about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. I want to go through all of our charts. And there's something that jumps out right at me on this very first chart that I think is significant. I think it is a shift in trend, and I think it is going to continue. There's two numbers I want to look at here in specific. One in gold is Bitcoin. You're going to see Bitcoin last week was up 10%. That's one of the best weeks it's had all year. It's the best week it's had in a long time. Conversely, in purple, you're going to see we have NASDAQ on this list as well. The NASDAQ was down 3%. So that is a drastic difference. Bitcoin, I believe, has held on very strong over the last couple of months. There's been a lot of downward pressure in the market. There's been massive downward pressure in the stocks, in the equities. And you're going to see even in just this 1 week period, the NASDAQ is down 3% and Bitcoin is up 10%. I think the NASDAQ and Bitcoin for basically the rest of the year, and I think all the way through the halving, have gone their separate ways. And that doesn't mean I think the NASDAQ is going to crash. I just think that these two are no longer going to be tied together in the way that a lot of people have been saying that they have been really for the last couple of years. But the clock is running out on the Bitcoin halving, and clearly there's some big things happening in the Bitcoin / cryptocurrency universe. So I believe this is a sign of things to come. Okay, so the good news is most of this chart is green, which means most of the Bitcoin miners were up on the week. But the bad news is the Bitcoin miners are supposed to be a leverage play. And for the last 14 weeks, they've been lagging Bitcoin severely. So you would think on a week where Bitcoin had a gigantic move to the upside of 10%, this would have been one of those opportunities for the Bitcoin miners to maybe make up for some lost ground, or at least just do the standard issue leverage that we usually get out of them, both on the way up and the way down. So there's only 3 Bitcoin miners that actually did better than Bitcoin, and 2 of them were almost exactly the same. CleanSpark and DigiHost were up 11% to Bitcoin's 10%, so not a real difference there. So really the only outlier, DMG blockchain, was up 19%. That's almost a 2x leverage. The miners, in my mind, are usually a 3x leverage on the average over the course of time. So any given week that may not happen. But again, the miners have been lagging behind drastically. So I thought with a big up week in Bitcoin, this would have been an opportunity for the Bitcoin miners to maybe make up for some lost ground. But really the opposite happened. You're going to see almost all the Bitcoin miners actually underperform Bitcoin. Now, not drastically. You're going to see a bunch of 8s here. If we go all the way to the bottom of this chart, you're going to see BitDeer down 29%. BitDeer has been in an absolute free fall for the last month now. I don't know where the bottom is on this. They've lost over $1 billion in market cap. They've gone from being the best performing Bitcoin miner over the last 3 months to, I think we're going to see one of the worst, if not the worst performing Bitcoin miner over the last 3 months. You're going to see some other things in the red. Argo blockchain was down 6%. NASDAQ in purple was down 3%. So the stock market overall did not have a great week. So this goes to my point that I do think Bitcoin is having a rally here. Riot Blockchain announced a meeting that they're going to have for shareholders to vote on increasing the employee stock incentive plan. So they're talking about adding 13 million shares to that plan. So that could potentially be a dilution event. That's the only reason that I could see that maybe Riot was underperforming. But Riot and Marathon, which go in tandem, you see Marathon was only up 1%, so neither one of them performed very well. In a week that Bitcoin was up 10%, the 2 largest Bitcoin miners by far, which are Riot and Marathon was up 1%, Riot was down 3%. So that was not a very good sign. So I don't want to dismiss the fact that this chart is green. That is good news. We have not had very many weeks in the last 14 weeks where there was more green than red on this chart. To that extent, this was a good week, but I still would argue this is week 14 of the Bitcoin miners really lagging behind where they should be versus Bitcoin. So let's go to the next chart, which is comparing that 14-week period. Okay, so here we go, 14 weeks. Bitcoin is down 2% over the last 14 weeks. And just so that you guys know, this goes back to June 14th. June 13th was the high for the year on Bitcoin. So Bitcoin Bitcoin essentially is only down 2% off of its highs for the year. In that same period of time, you're going to see in purple right next to it, the NASDAQ is down 8%. And then you're going to see the Bitcoin miners. So I want to go to the middle of this chart. Almost all of the Bitcoin miners are somewhere plus or minus of down 50%. A few of them are even down significantly more than that. TeraWulf's down 69%, Mawson is down 74%, and now finally BitDeer is now in last place, down 77%. Again, to remind everybody, 5 weeks ago, BitDeer was in first place on this whole list. So we had been talking each and every week that BitDeer was behaving in a way that I didn't understand. They trade on extremely low volume. There are days where their volume is 1/50th or 1/100th the volume of what Marathon trades on a daily basis. So these are gigantic moves on extremely small volume. This is a highly volatile stock, and all of these are volatile stocks. I say that each week because it is so important for you guys to understand, especially if you're new to the channel, if you're new to trading Bitcoin miners. These are ultra highly volatile stocks. This is a leveraged play on a volatile asset, which is Bitcoin. So there is big risk reward here, and you're going to see the leverage has been huge to the downside. And this is where I'm saying this 14-week period, the Bitcoin miners have been a massive drag versus Bitcoin. We have not gotten out of this cycle despite the fact that this week was by and large a green week for most of the Bitcoin miners. So later we're going to take a look at the Bitcoin chart and I'm going to tell you what I think it's going to take for the Bitcoin miners to have the breakout that Bitcoin is already having. All right, so quickly, this is the year-to-date chart, and you're going to see this is also mostly green. The problem with this is if you go back 14 weeks ago, the average Bitcoin miner was up somewhere around 300%, and now you're going to see even the ones that are performing well are somewhere between 100 and 162%. There's a few that are above that. DigiHost is up 217%, BitDigital is up 245%, Cypher really leads the way at 364%. Technically, Core Scientific's up even more than that at 693%, but they are trading over the counter. They are in chapter 11 currently, so I'm not sure what's going to happen to this stock. All right, so if you look at this chart, you're going to see Bitcoin is up 79% on the year. This is what I'm saying. Bitcoin is actually having a very good year this year. Bitcoin is still way off of its all-time highs. It's still down over 55% from its highs from 2021. So to an extent, it feels like Bitcoin's not doing well, but 79% this year to date is excellent performance. It's one of the best performing assets out there, and you're going to see that 79% compares to the NASDAQ, which you'll see here in purple, which is up 25% on the year. That's actually quite strong for an index to be up on the year, but it doesn't compare to what Bitcoin is doing. So you're going to see there's 7 Bitcoin miners that are actually underperforming Bitcoin year to date. So to me, that is disturbing, and to me, that says that the market is very concerned about these 7 in specific. For them to be underperforming Bitcoin itself means that the market is worried whether or not these companies, in my opinion, whether or not these companies are even going to survive going through the halving. We're now less than 6 months away from the halving. That is a significant event. It has typically been a very good event for Bitcoin over the course of time. And I do believe what's good for Bitcoin is good for the Bitcoin miners, but there is a lag for this. While the halving itself will probably be a good thing for Bitcoin over the course of the next 6 months or a year, the initial impact on the Bitcoin miners is the reward is reduced by 50%. So this is a drastic hit to their revenue. It's a drastic hit to their gross profit. And unless Bitcoin makes a move upward, this is one of the reasons that people are holding back on the Bitcoin miners. With Bitcoin somewhere around 30,000, the Bitcoin miners, most of them are not going to perform very well, financially speaking, at the halving if we're still in this neighborhood. I think at this point the market has priced in Bitcoin being somewhere between 30 and 35,000 at the halving. So if Bitcoin were to outperform that, I do think the Bitcoin miners could stand to have a big run up. And all Bitcoin miners are not created equal. So I do want to say, you guys got to do your due diligence and decide which Bitcoin miners you think are going to thrive over the course of time. I do think there will be winners and losers. So the question that I would ask is in this next group right here, between CleanSpark, Hive, Hut, Marathon, Bitfarms, some of these companies that are not even a 2x leverage on Bitcoin, is there some room to the upside? Are some of these companies operationally performing very well? Do they have a low cost of Bitcoin? Are they set up to thrive at the halving, basically regardless of where Bitcoin is at within reason? So these are the way I look at these charts. This is what I'm trying to do. Every one of these charts, I'm hoping presents some information, some clue, some piece to the puzzle of which, if any of these Bitcoin miners are worth investing in. Okay, lastly, this is a chart of Bitcoin miner by market cap. Be careful, these numbers are not precise, but they should be reasonably accurate. You're going to see, as has always been the case, Riot and Marathon are by far the two largest market caps in this industry. It's not even close. In third place, nearly $1 billion behind, is Cypher at $662 million. In fourth place is CleanSpark, just under $600 million. You're going to see a big group between about 180 million and 289 million. So somewhere in here, again, is where I'm looking for opportunities. Are some of these maybe undervalued versus some of these much larger market cap companies? The last thing I want to look at is the Bitcoin chart on the one-day time frame. And I want to talk about what I think it's going to take for the Bitcoin miners to basically reverse this trend and start to have their run to the upside. So I've measured from the low on September 11th, which is when Bitcoin retested 25,000, to the high point over this weekend. And that is about a 23% move to the upside. So like I said, Bitcoin is in the middle of a bull run here. In this time frame, remember, the Bitcoin miners have continued to move down. So what's it going to take for the Bitcoin miners to break out of this and start to have their run to the upside? Bitcoin's been trading between 25,000, which it hit on March 17th and tested two more times, once in June, once again in September. And then it has run basically up and down 20% several times now. So it looks to me like investors are waiting to see if Bitcoin can break out of this range to the upside. So I really think Bitcoin needs to break out above 32,000 and make a run from there. I think that is going to happen, but I will caution you, like I said at the beginning of this video, don't be fooled. Bitcoin is very volatile. We've seen it take moves to the upside and the downside. 20% moves are nothing for Bitcoin. So I'm not sure where it's going to top out in this current run, but I do think even if it has another pullback, this is an ascending channel that Bitcoin has been inside of since really its lows back on September 11th. So you're going to see for a period of time here in the middle of October, we broke to the downside on the bottom of this range. Now the last 4 days in a row, we've been above the top of this range. So I would not be shocked to see some type of reversion to the mean and retest the middle of this range, which is somewhere around $29,000. So even if we were to move a little bit to the downside, I do think at some point we'll bounce off of that. I'm expecting Bitcoin to take out its highs for the year of 2023. I'm expecting Bitcoin to get past 32,000. I thought we would have a run up to somewhere between 30 and 32,000 in the month of October. It looks like we've already done that. We've been at 30,000 basically for the last 24 hours. We'll see where we go from here, but now what I think the chart is saying is that sometime between now and the end of the year, I think Bitcoin could easily take a run at $35,000. So again, I don't believe it'll be in a straight line, so be careful. Don't be fooled. But that's what I think it's going to take for the Bitcoin miners to start to turn around. And the last thing I'll say again is that I don't think it's going to be all the Bitcoin miners. I think there's going to be winners and losers. So that's your job as an investor to do your own due diligence, make up your own mind and decide which, if any of these Bitcoin miners you think are going to have upside going into the halving and beyond. Hope you guys got something useful out of this. Thanks so much for watching. Please remember to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next video.